Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Welcome to the first episode of Living with the Quran. Today we will start with the first surah, but first surah from a chronological order, not from the order of the mushaf that we have in our hands. And the reason is because the Quran came down in different order from a time perspective rather than the order that is in the mushaf that we have. We're going to try to live the Quran as it was revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, day by day, week by week, and month by month. The first surah that was ever revealed, as everybody knows, is Surah Al-Alaq. So we're going to start with that. But before we start the surah, we're going to go through the context of when the surah was revealed and the setting and the situations that the Rasul ﷺ was going through when the surah was revealed. And for sure, since this is the beginning of the wahi, beginning of the revelation, it takes us back to year 610 CE in Mecca al-Mukarramah. Now what happened in 610 and what happened before 610 has to do with the surah too. Why was Islam revealed? Why was the Quran revealed? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dictate that there will be another message, another messenger in a different area of the world called the Arabian Peninsula or Arabia, to lead the people to guidance back from darkness. If you look at the world, anybody who's studied world history knows that the dominant nations of that time was the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. Arabia maybe wasn't the map, but was just a desert. So let's zoom into Arabia, let's zoom into Mecca, and let's look at the situation of the human being as a human being. The Quran didn't come for the Arabs, didn't come for any specific race. It came to deal and to guide the human being as a human species, man by man, woman by woman. So the Roman Empire, in the situation of the Roman Empire, how was it? Most people would think it's great, it's a great empire, lots of wealth and lots of people and lots of, strength and big armies and Julius Caesar and Shakespeare. Persian Empire on a similar footing is a great empire. But how is the life of the people? If we stop looking at the macro and look at the individual, how was the regular Roman human being, the Roman citizen, or the Roman subject, as they call it, living? How was his life? How was her life? And if you dig into history, you know that most people were not happy. The situation was as dire as today. Yes, there's wealth, there's lots of flash and lots of drama, lots of entertainment, coliseums all over the place, gladiators trying to keep people in the bubble. But was every single person happy? Ask yourself, are you happy today? You're living in the West, in America, in Canada, in the UK, some of the best countries in the world in terms of wealth and quality of life, as they say. Are people happy? Are people living a life that is just and that fills their hearts with satisfaction? The Roman citizen or the Roman subject, and in consequence also the Persian citizen and the Persian subject, were burdened by lots of taxations. Famines were everywhere. People were hungry. People were in pain. People were in debt. People were searching for jobs. Farmers were suffering. Everybody was suffering. Injustice was widespread. The leaders of the Roman Empire, and similarly the leaders of the Persian Empire, just acquired wealth for their own families and their own selves. It was greed that pushed everybody to compete on an unleveled playground. And Islam saw all these injustices. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent messengers in general in the first place. Because if the human being was left to live his life on his own, with his own cognition, his own thinking processes, with his own decisions, he will end up being a greedy species that unjustly competes on an unleveled environment where the poor will continue to be poor and become poorer, and the rich will only basically become more filthy rich and dominate all domains of life. Rape, slavery, all types of injustice was widespread in the Roman Empire, as well as Persia. We zoom into Arabia. Was Arabia any different? I mean, the civilization and the entrepreneurship and the sciences were in Rome and Persia. We come to the desert. We come to the no man land. We come to an area where it's arid. There's no sources of life. There's no sources of water. There's no sources of economic development. And we zoom into Mecca. Mecca at the time of the birth of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in 570 or around that time. How was life there? Was it any better? Or was it worse? Most people think it will be worse. Most people will think it's worse. Some people will think it's better because it is, the birthplace of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where the Kaaba is. But unfortunately, it wasn't better and wasn't worse. Same diseases, same human diseases occurred in Mecca like any other place in the world. Rape, injustices, abortion, usury, riba, all type of injustices, slavery was rampant in Mecca. Poverty was all over the place. The Rasulullah, his heart used to break from the sights of people begging for food and the basics of life. And this is what instilled in him the thought and the initial thinking about what is this life all about? Why is there so much misery? Why is there so much sadness and depression in society and suffering? For sure, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his birth, from his early days, didn't accept what society used to dictate as the de facto way of living. He saw his family and his neighbors and his people all worshipping idols, all oppressing the slaves, all oppressing the poor, all oppressing women and the weak, bigger tribes beating small tribes, bigger merchants beating small merchants, tougher people beating weaker people. And that's the life of the tribal societies in Arabia. Now, as a person with a mind that thinks and a mind that doesn't accept the status quo, a mind that does not takes things for granted and takes the beliefs of his parents and families and grandparents and his forefathers as a de facto truth, he thought and he reached a totally different conclusion about life. On his own, using his mental capability that every single human being has, have thought about life and reached a conclusion that there must be a creator for this whole universe. A creator that's all-knowing, all-wise, all-merciful. You can see Allah's mercy everywhere. You can see Allah's mercy just with the ability of the human being to continue living, to breathe, to have food, to have water. Sustaining of life is in the design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decisions. So the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the next step was to step back and take some time off, to think further and further and further about the purpose of life. Most people take the purpose of life for granted. They think the purpose of life is just about running around and getting a bachelor degree, going to university, getting a good job, and making it to become somebody in society. They evaluate the human importance by how much you can do or how much you have. It's all based upon materialistic criteria. The Rasul ﷺ knew there was something beyond all that. So he took some time off. He started doing meditation and times to basically just ponder and reflect about life, knowing that there is a creator, knowing that the creator, and his name is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he raised his hands in many different times and asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for hidayah. He thought and made lots of dua until he had a special place and time for his khalwa, which was Ghar Hira. Ghar Hira is this little small cave in one of the mountains surrounding Mecca, where he found this cave that used to look directly upon the Kaaba. So he used to stay there for many days and a full month, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance, pondering, reflecting upon the status and the state of affairs in his city, that he loved for his people, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted such a person the hidayah. And we'll leave you with that, inshaAllah, and we'll continue in our second episode from Ghar Hira. So please join us, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, and don't forget to like our Facebook page, Living the Quran, and our YouTube channel, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Barakallah feekum. We'll see you inshaAllah next week. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This one, clap.